What up? What up? It's Bryan back with another episode of the Trial and Error podcast. It's been a couple of weeks. Um, I'm gonna be transparent with y'all. Your boys had a lot of different things going on, um, and it's all been good. A lot of more business related stuff. Some things that are gonna actually I'm gonna be kind of mentioning on air um, this week. I got a couple of different things that are popping right now, and I'm really kind of happy with how my life is going right now. And so, share some of the insights I picked up because trial and error is about sharing that kind of information, and maybe you can use it. But I do have something at the top of the hour. For those that don't know, my name is Bryan. I sell words in the media room, teach business owners how to get visible on social media, and let them know it's not that scary or difficult. The biggest challenges we face in this social media landscape is too many options. And so I help you whittle down the options to the things that make sense for what you want to do. I also co own a basketball training business where I am kind of the operational brain of the back end of things. And I also am a professional with decades of experience working with kids and families in various capacities, all the way from teaching parents to working directly with kids to managing staff to case management to teaching classes about social skills, everything, all of that stuff. And so the things that are in my wheelhouse are pretty vast. I've done a lot of different things in my time. So, with all that out of the way, waiting for Fearless. Fearless will be showing up. He's got business. Hey, we got lives of business owners. We're business owners. We've got stuff out there in the wind that we got to take care of. So before we get too far into this, I'm going to let the stream start populating a little bit. But I said all that and kind of gave you the resume a little bit because I do feel like I had a whole nother topic I wanted to discuss, and I think I'm going to table that one and spin the block on that one because we've talked a lot about the American narrative and what happens when people stop believing the American narrative. And this is kind of in the American narrative series. And so I wanted to pump the brakes on that one a little bit. But let's go. I want to go back to a topic that we've discussed pretty recently, talking about expertise and what people know and how they know it, things along those lines. And so today's topic is a one for two kind of thing. We're going to talk about what counts as expertise. And this is totally ADHD driven. This is a conversation I literally just had with somebody. Use literally. I don't like using that. But I'll be transparent with you because a lot of times these shows are kind of informed by conversations that we have. Okay. And so I'm in a group, kind of a local group. And we have somebody that is looking at kind of coming into the area, a Black parent, and they're asking about the school district, which is a normal conversation for a parent to ask. But as a Black parent, one Black parent to another, I understand that there's layers to that conversation, right? When you're looking at the correct, you're looking at asking the questions and getting the answers you're looking with. There's layers to that conversation when a Black parent asks what school district should we be looking at when we're looking at moving into a new city, because there's considerations that we have to be aware of. And so I gave them the Black parent version of this is what you need to look out for in the local school district. Knowing one, Omaha is not the worst, but it is a pretty segregated school district. Two, I'm drawing on decades and decades of experience working with families, doing the liaison work between the families and the schools, or acting as a conduit between the families and the schools, trying to find meaningful accommodations. As a student in the school district, as a professional who's worked with families in the school district, and as a parent, and different, just holding different capacities and talking to people up and down the school district. Long story short, I kind of said, these schools are ones that I would not, as a Black parent, put a Black child into, just because of experiences I've had on all these different fronts with this school district and some recent things that have popped off. And more or less, I got accused of using anecdotal evidence, which It's yeah. I have my decades of experience. My decades of experience is my anecdotal evidence because I've actually interfaced with the school districts around this town in ways that a lot of people have not. In capacities that a lot of people have not. A lot of people only interface with the school districts and the powers of be a school district on one level, and I've had multiple levels at all levels. Been in big boardrooms and things with the people that actually determine the policy for the school districts, and also been in the small rooms with the teachers and stuff. And so I have a very unique scope of experience when it comes to that. And so yeah, my evidence is anecdotal, but it's also drawn from uh, close to 400 families that interacted through 20 some odd years of doing different tiers of things. And so, yeah, um, if we're talking anecdotal evidence, we're talking about schools and things that I've had to work with and work in and around for a long time. It's kind of like I will take a lawyer's anecdotal evidence about a legal proceeding over somebody that's never done it or just looked up lawyer stuff online. There's levels to this stuff. And so, yeah, we're using anecdotal evidence. Pretty much every piece of evidence that an expert that's not tested or researched or documented is going to be from personal experience. I trust in my personal experience in this specific realm. Now, if you're asking me about what to do with your plumbing in your house, that's 100% anecdotal evidence that I can provide, and I could be 100% wrong on that aspect. But you're asking for anecdotal evidence in my wheelhouse. Yeah, I'm gonna stand on my square and say, yeah, I know this. This is what I can plumb from almost 20, 30 years of working in different capacities in the different school districts around the city. And being different levels of holders within that. And so anyway, I got accused of the anecdotal evidence. I'm like, yeah, it is anecdotal, drawn from decades of experience. And so that's what I want to get into. We often talk about different layers of expertise and things along those lines. And we've kind of beaten the horse to death, but there are a lot of people that are faking the expertise. And your work experience, the job you do on a daily basis, gives you a higher level of knowledge on a day-to-day basis on the specific details and nuances of that job than the guy off the street. There's nothing wrong with anecdotal evidence if you have plenty of work experience to back up said anecdotal evidence. So anyway, the question really was, which district was kind of the highest test scores? The real question is, where is my Black child likely to be supported, understood, and treated fairly? And unfortunately, in this local area, there are school districts that aren't cutting the mustard. And I know this from direct experience and having to diffuse situations and mediate situations and hearing about specific situations, giving advice about how to deal with specific situations regarding racial issues in the various school districts. So I can give my interpretation of this school district works, this school district doesn't. One of the things is anybody that's been in or grew up around Omaha knows that the biggest dog whistle in the city is stay east of 72nd Street, because really the signal you're saying is all the Black people live east of most of the Black people live east of 72nd Street, so stay away from them. That's the dog whistle side of it. And somebody casually used that dog whistle, and I'm not going to ascribe attention to it. Don't ascribe malice what can be explained away as simple ignorance. When I confronted them about the point that using "don't go east of 72nd" was kind of a racist dog whistle in this city, they immediately said, well, I didn't mean it like that. Well, that's how it's been used, so I don't care. But I'm not going to say that it was a malicious thing. I'm just putting you up on game that, yeah, that's kind of a foul thing to say. And so anyway, long story short, I got accused of using anecdotal evidence. Well, yeah, I am using anecdotal evidence. I got over 300 different engagements, interactions through 20 years of experience working in the community, in nonprofits, and all this other stuff, dealing directly with kids, families, and schools. So yeah, I'm going to have a perspective, and yeah, my perspective is going to be more informed than somebody who's only worked with one school district or experienced a single school district. Take it for how you want. Okay. And so, in districts are going to have different histories. Like I do know I have a bias against specific school districts that I played against when I played football, because I remember getting spat on and called the N-word at a specific school coming out of the tunnel. Like it's happened. It's a real thing. And so yeah, some of that stuff does apply. And for another Black parent who's not aware of the history, that stuff matters. Okay. So the problem with saying, well, that's just anecdotal evidence as a dismissal is oftentimes you need to look at what this person's actual lived and work experience is in the specific thing that you're addressing. Yeah, it's anecdotal evidence. I'm not pretending it's not. I'm not saying it's not. But that anecdotal evidence comes with a higher value because this is literally what I did, working with kids, families, schools, and anywhere in between for almost 20 years in different capacities. So yes, anecdotal is from personal experience. My personal experience is this. It's like accusing a doctor of using anecdotal evidence when they're diagnosing you. Yes, they're going to refer to the stuff in the book and the stuff that's proven, but they're still going to be drawing upon a pool of anecdotal evidence to figure out, does this diagnosis match with what's going on? And more times than not, their anecdotal evidence that they're using is going to help inform their decision. So, yeah. And so anyway, we have these conversations and stuff, and yeah, you don't want to put value in low-level anecdotal evidence, but this is direct experience, and so lived experience does count to a degree. An isolated one-way story is an anecdote. 20 years of case management, residential care, direct care, family support, community health, and youth work is not just an isolated story. It's a patchwork, it's a framework of a larger area of expertise. Okay. It doesn't mean that all my conclusions are automatically proven. It just means that I have an insight that a lot of people may not possess about a specific thing. And I think oftentimes we will, because a lot of times people will misappropriate research because they don't understand how research actually works. And they will use research and findings from research, not really being terribly literate on like, stuff that's written in medical journals or how to parse statistics. And they would use those statistics inappropriately because they're not really fully aware of what this information actually means. And so we do need to address that expertise pretending to be, or formal knowledge pretending to be expertise, or informal knowledge pretending to be expertise. So anyway, I don't, like I said, I'm too old to be doing the entire argue on the internet thing. But I just wanted to kind of point that out. There are levels to this, and people say there are levels to this all the time. But there's levels to one's knowledge. It doesn't make every conclusion that I come up with true, but it also doesn't mean that just because it's anecdotal means it's false either. Okay. There's an accumulated professional observation and pattern recognition. Okay. I've interacted with more than 250 families professionally, roughly 150 families through business ownership. That counts for something. It's not I've met people and therefore I can't be wrong. The point is I've worked in this specific capacity, working with students, with parents of Black children narrowly, Native American children, indigenous children, I should say, different kids of immigrants, things along those lines. And I have a pretty good frame of reference for the difficulties the parents are saying that they're facing in each school district, and which school districts have patterns of issues and others that do not. Just like when I was a kid, when I was doing youth probation, at the time, the school district that was considered one of the wealthiest also had the strongest drug problem. And so I had to talk to a parent who thought that putting their kid in the wealthiest, their kid that was in services for drug issues, they thought that their problem will be solved if they took their kid out of the poor school district and dropped them into the rich school district. And I had to sit down and explain to this parent that rich school district has drug problems that you've never seen before, because they have money and free time and and access to unsupervised transportation that kids in the school district where there's poor did not. And so explaining that to them, they did not have an understanding of that. And so I had to break it down to them and said, you've taken this kid who has a drug problem and dropped them into the school that has the strongest drug culture in the city. And you did it based on equating rich school district with safe school district. It's going to be contextual for what's going to be best for your kid. If I had a kid that had a substance abuse issue, that would be the absolute last school district I would send them to, because I know the drug culture in that school district, because I've had kids that were in the same issue, had the same referral issues and referral behaviors in that school district, and how deeply entrenched it is. And even the administrators would admit that their drug problem in that school district was pretty significant, just because the kids had more money. And like I said, this parent used their knowledge and equated rich school district with a safe school district for my kid. It's all contextual. For that kid who had a substance use issue, putting them in said school district was not a good idea. And they made that decision isolated, without anybody's anecdotal evidence, without anybody's expertise, if you will, area of expertise. And so that's what I'm saying. So, there's formal research, and we're going to talk about different types of evidence. There's formal research. This is large samples, defined variables, replicable methods, strong, broad population level claims, administrative data. Okay. These are going to be like discipline rates, graduation rates, advanced course access, special education placement, teacher retention, achievement gaps, professional experience. I've met with people about all of these things in a professional capacity, and advised in a professional capacity about all of these different areas. Okay. And so that's what I'm saying. And so there's the formal side, which I've actually consulted on, and then there's the more informal side. Okay. And that's going to be one person's story. It's useful as a signal, but then also an accumulative. How many times have I been at this school district for these same issues? How many different sets of parents have reported similar school issues in this school district? That's going to be the things about. That's going to be the informal stuff. So you have the formal research, which is sample sizes and variables and replicable methods, and stronger like population level things. And then there's the more administrative data, discipline, graduation rates, and stuff like that. And I've been advised in all of these capacities in different, in different capacities. So, and just repeated contact with the same institutions, with parents expressing the same things. That's what I'm saying. Seeing how written policies are applied in real life, recognizing warning signs before they become measurable crises, and lived experience, what students and parents directly encountered, and things that I've had to mediate, things I've had to be in the room for, times where a parent or administrators asked me to sit in on a meeting about said specific thing and to help to work to some kind of resolution or put a plan together. And plenty of times I've been the guy in the room for that. And the information the institutions don't necessarily record. Like how many times, because we've had a big issue with a school district where the kid staged a walkout because one of the teachers was using the N-word freely in class. And there was no action administratively taken, so the kid staged a walkout. That is significant for a parent to know when you're talking about culture of a school, specifically when you're talking about educating a Black child in that school. And so it is being cognizant of these kind of things. Okay. And so we talk about things that the day-to-day experiences of students and parents directly. I grew up in the school district. I talked about my experience being somebody who was diagnosed with ADHD as an adult, but had the diagnosis as a kid that I was never aware of. The reason I was never aware of it was because for a Black child in the 90s, ADHD in the school district I'm in, that was a track, which means that you weren't on the way to college. You wouldn't even get access to advanced placement courses or anything. All your, gifted, all that other stuff just fell by the wayside because it was an instant track. And they would drop you on that track, and that would be your path through the rest of your school experience, regardless of how intelligent you were. And so there were a lot of Black kids who had the intelligence, but were still placed in remedial courses because, it was considered, they had a disability, is the way they phrased it. ADHD is a learning disability kind of thing. And in the 80s or 90s, if you wanted your Black child to be able to have access to the courses that would get them to college, you couldn't have that on their ledger. It just wasn't an option because they would instantly track you, where that wasn't exactly a barrier for white kids. And it was an informal one because the person making the decision typically thought that they were helping the kid out, or some were malicious about it. I'm not going to front, but that's why, my mom made a business decision about, okay, if I lead with his diagnosis, he's not going to get the kind of education that he needs in this school district because this is what the issue is. That's lived experience. She worked in the school district. She had hundreds of kids. As a nurse, she encountered hundreds of kids that had different diagnoses, anywhere from ADHD to depression to all kinds of other things. And she saw how Black kids were separated out when they were diagnosed with these things. And she made a decision based on her knowledge. And I can't fault her for it because it was the right decision. In hindsight, at the time, because that allowed me to take the advanced placement courses that I was actually supposed to be in and graduate with a full ride scholarship. Whereas some of my peers never had that opportunity. That's just what it is, y'all. And so we can't completely dismiss anecdotal evidence when the person that's providing the anecdotal evidence actually has long-term working knowledge in the specific thing that they're providing evidence to. No matter how we try to parse it. And oftentimes people try to parse it because it's uncomfortable conversations, uncomfortable truths about institutions that they are invested in. When I was doing emergency youth care and working with the population of kids that have run away and things along those lines, one of the uncomfortable conversations was the reality of the College World Series for sex trafficking. It was a real thing. It had been established as a real thing for a long time around here. It was a super uncomfortable conversation for people that were unaware of how big of a trafficking event it actually was. But since I worked with the population of those most likely to be targeted, I had to bring it up. And some people were like, no, that can't be it. Why? The police are always down there. Y'all don't understand how law enforcement handles this kind of stuff. Y'all don't have the experience of how they always handle kids that are runaways. And some of the stuff is very, very, very uncomfortable because some of the institutions you believe in that are there to, protect and serve are also some of the biggest enablers of the trafficking stuff. Just being aware, y'all. And understanding that sometimes somebody's anecdotal evidence as a professional outweighs your statistics driven information as a novice, because you don't have the ability, you may not have the ability to put the statistics and stuff into the proper context because you don't have a working knowledge. That's what I'm saying. So here's the real hierarchy. This form of knowledge is not interchangeable. Research can show a broad pattern, but administrative data can show outcomes. Practitioners can explain how those outcomes are produced. That's how those things are connected. Just because somebody,
boom,
what's up, Fearless?
What's up, yeah?
We're having the conversation about the different tiers of anecdotal evidence, and I'll kind of give you the rundown of what we're talking about, because I know the Black parent, you're going to understand where I'm coming from. Okay, so in the local Black parents moving to Omaha.
Hey, your sound is horrible.
It is.
Okay, I probably picked that up.
Yeah. Something happens with my audio. Didn't turn down. Is that better?
Way better.
Yeah, so I think I might need to swap out this mic. So I'll probably do that. Anyway. Okay. So anyway, in a local group, Black parent comes in, they're moving to town. They're asking about the school districts around here. Me and you know that's a layered conversation, because they're asking about outcomes and achievements and everything, but there's a whole nother thing that they're going to be worrying about. I come in and saying, as a Black parent, here's my experience with some of these school districts. Okay. Somebody hops on and says, just stay east of 72nd Street. Har, 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 har. And so I confront that and say it's wild to say that, and basically telling people to stay away from the Black people in Omaha. And they're, of course, they're like, wait, I didn't mean it like that. I'm like, but that's been a racist dog whistle in the city for my entire life, bro. Like, I know what that means. So anyway, long story short, I give my opinion and somebody's like, well, all your evidence is anecdotal. And I'm like, yeah, it's lived experience. Here's where the anecdotal evidence is. 150 families served as a business owner, working with kids and families in schools. Well over 200 kids and families served in over 20 years of working with kids and families at every single level of interaction with childcare and working with schools, sitting in rooms with the heads of districts, having conversations about issues that Black kids are experiencing, issues that Indigenous kids are experiencing, issues that immigrant kids are experiencing in these school districts, having family that has attended these school districts and talking about what they've experienced, and then seeing other friends have the same issues at the same school districts. And so it's like, yeah, my information is anecdotal. It also comes from 20 years of worked experience. Mm-hmm. So my anecdotal evidence is going to outweigh kind of what your thought about it is based on what you found on the internet, because my understanding is tied to that. I have the ability to put that information in context, as opposed to you reading it out of context based on your non-experience in there. And so that's what the entire conversation is. Yes, anecdotal evidence does exist and it does have value, and there's levels to this shit.
Okay.
So that's where I'm at. I kind of posited that a doctor draws on anecdotal evidence. They also draw on stuff that they know that is book knowledge. But when they're making the diagnosis, they're going to draw on their worked experience and then test it against their book knowledge and come to a solution.
Right.
And so, go ahead.
No, so I just finished reading this book. It's called How to Rule the World by Theo Baker. Mm-hmm. And the subtitle is An Education and Power at Stanford University. And a few years ago, the president of Stanford was basically removed from power, and this nobody kid came in, started doing as a freshman, started doing Um, he went into computer science, and then he just started doing as a hobby. He joined the Daily, which is their newspaper, and started getting into journalism
Right.
again as a freshman.
Mm-hmm.
And he started coming up with all these really cool stories. Well, he started getting a name for himself about the stories that he was putting out. Well, one of them, somebody anonymously sent him uh, these, uh, these papers about the president of Stanford.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't know what he was looking at, so he read him over. Talked to a couple people, and they're like, "Yeah, there's something wrong with this guy's stuff." So technically, he's a doctor, and he and his team created some stuff for Alzheimer's, right?
Mm-hmm.
This particular evidence to be able to help people, this and the other, and they put it up for peer to peer review. Nobody, well, I guess the mainstream didn't say anything about it, but the people that were in the other scientists knew that there was something not right with this. And you want to know why they knew there was something not right with it?
What?
Because they could not reproduce the same results that they got. So in science is not about um, like it's not about right or wrong. It's not about uh, uh, who's bigger, who's smaller. No, it's about what worked and what doesn't.
Yep.
And whatever you come up with, can I get the same results out of this? Now, again, there's going to be certain truths that we understand, right? One of the things I love that Neil deGrasse Tyson talked about, I think he said there's three types of truths. There's a personal truth, the one that I have. There is a institutional truth, which is our government, rules, regulations, laws, those type of truths. And then there's a universal global truth that whether I was here or not, the same rules would still apply,
Mm-hmm.
right? And kind of going back to what you were saying, that's one of your truths.
Mm-hmm.
But that truth is a subjective truth based on your personal experience. Now, somebody else may have a totally different
Right.
experience, right? And that's why there's subjective experiences, right? As opposed to objective, because dude, there's nothing I can say or do. Like at this point, there's nothing I can do about gravity.
Right.
It's whether you believe in gravity or not, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Throw something up and watch the laws of the universe, at least here on Earth, do its job.
Right.
Sit up under a apple tree and watch the laws of this universe do its job. Sending your children to certain schools, depending on who you are, depending on what you do, depending on how valuable people think and or believe that you are, your result might be totally different from their classmate who sits directly next to them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so again, we're not talking about like a French type of class or whatever where they put everybody together,
Right.
so everybody's on the same page for the most part. You know, people that are extremely rich, you know, people that are really not, but their lunches all come out the same. They're all taught the same stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They have to intermingle with each other.
Mm-hmm.
They have to. Whereas in the United States, we don't. So when it comes to schooling and stuff like that, you see a lot of that. And I'm talking about that because first off, I'm going to school for philosophy and sociology and all that. So I'm pretty inept on kind of what's going on pertaining to that. Plus, I just read my book, which is talking about Stanford University, who has an endowment of billions of dollars.
Yeah.
Billions.
Millions. Mhm.
But with a B. Billy is 9, y'all. And she has sisters. Billions. So I'm just saying, my dude, like, come on, man. So no, I totally understand what you're saying.
Yeah. And that's really the point of all of it. Like, I'm not, it's not saying, it's not just making the shit up. I think that's what a lot of people think. Specifically when it's uncomfortable, because that's always it is. When it's an uncomfortable conversation, people like, oh, well, you're just using anecdotes. Okay, yeah. It's anecdotes born from real experience. It's not anecdotes born from me just being a parent in this one context or one other context. This is kind of a professional estimation of it. But
right. But at the same time, though, I forgot what book I was reading, but they were talking about some of the same stuff or whatever. Actually, I think it was my sociology book, and they were kind of talking about certain traumas that people have,
mm-hmm.
and then somebody else will come along and try to undercut what they're talking about. So one of the things that they were talking about in my book was Black Lives Matter, right? And then the opposite of that, or the aversion of that, is, well, no, all lives matter. But what these individuals are saying, because you wouldn't want to be treated like that, and you wouldn't want to be done like this. So that to me, that is almost like saying, if I walk around with a pink ribbon because I know somebody who passed away from breast cancer,
mm-hmm.
but then you walk up to me and say, no, all cancers matter. I'm just talking about this particular one.
Right.
I'm not talking about, I'm not downplaying the plights or the struggle of anybody else. I'm just saying, hey, my life matters. And then somebody else would say, well, I don't think so. Well, no, all lives matter. And that's kind of spitting in somebody's face of like, bro, what are you? I'm not saying that your life doesn't matter. And I'm not saying that all cancers don't matter. I'm just saying, like, this is the one that I represent. This is the one that I'm kind of seeing, right? So then you take it a step further, and then you say, well, no, man, you need to be consciously aware of what's going on. Another word for consciously aware is to be woke, which is basically to see shit as it is and call it out.
Yeah.
That's what it means. Somebody else takes that and they weaponize that word. So now if anytime you use something like that, it's like, oh, you go woke, you go broke. So you're trying to tell me I can watch you destroy shit, and if I say something about it, I'm woke?
Right.
Like really?
Well,
that's what we're doing. So yeah, go ahead.
So I mean, and if we're being honest, I mean, if you look at it, they did the kind of etymology on the entire concept of woke. Black people have been using woke in some way, shape, or form since the Harlem Renaissance. And if you don't know when the Harlem Renaissance is, go open a book and look it up, or open up your tab on your browser.
Yeah, but they never used that word or that term woke. It was always consciousness.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying.
That's what we would always say.
Yeah, and so that's what the entire concept of staying woke was about. And so recently, and I'm talking 2020, after all these decades and decades and decades of people using Black people using the word woke within community, all of a sudden it means something else it's not like it fell out of favor. It's not like we hadn't been saying it. It's not like it had not been used, but somebody else decided, oh, this means something else now. And a lot of it is, and it was, for being honest, the person that is most credited with it is a dude named Chris Rufo. Um, he basically built a marketing campaign. Let's use their words against them. And so he was he was in charge of stuff for weaponizing the word, CRT, woke, DEI, and he built an entire political campaign around it at the expense of specifically with Black people saying woke. It's like, yeah, this word y'all been using in your community for all these decades now means something else because we decided, these people external to y'all, we decided that it means something else now. And so now that's just what it means. And so all these conversations that you had are now moot because we made the decision that your conversations don't matter. That's kind of the insidiousness of how the entire thing with woke was hijacked. Because like I said, they talk about who was early. You could talk to, I think it was Lead Belly is one of the earliest ones that they've said in a cultural context was on record talking about being woke. And this is like the 1920s. In the 1920s, like I said, Harlem Renaissance time. And so that's like me and a couple other, I get a couple of Black consultants together and we decide that we're going to change the meaning to the word the. The now means something different than what the has always meant. Because we say the means something completely different. That's the reality of what we're talking about. So, to kind of spin the block, pattern recognition is a part of expertise in a broader sense. If you've worked in a specific capacity, your ability to recognize patterns in the area of the thing that you know is better than somebody who has no working knowledge of what the thing is. And so if you work in a machine shop and you know patterns of when the machine is about to break down, hey, I need to get active and prevent the machine from completely breaking down. Because that's internal knowledge that you may have, knowing that that's, this internal knowledge of the thing that you may have based on your working experience. Yeah, so your working experience provides you anecdotal knowledge, but you also have professional expertise working in that thing, working in that context. So yes, I digress again. There's levels to anecdotal knowledge or anecdotal evidence. Okay. So expertise is not just having read more studies than everyone else. It's repeated exposure, getting feedback, getting correction, your ability to recognize patterns. Like I said, a veteran mechanic may hear a sound that means nothing to a customer, but that veteran mechanic knows that this is disaster for said thing. A case manager may recognize that a family is being framed as non-compliant when the institution has repeatedly failed to communicate. I've lived that. Problem. I lived that one as a case manager where a family was being framed as, well, they're not complying. Well, I've had lived experience where this specific service provider was terrible at communicating expectations to families and then pinning their lack of ability to execute on the family. And because I knew that, I was able to change providers and note that in the court report so the family did not get in trouble for the service provider's failures.
Somebody else, yeah.
And so that's what pattern recognition does. That's what expertise means. That's what the expertise, that's the part of pattern recognition that comes with expertise. So yes, anecdotal, but it allows you to recognize patterns.
So you've used that word several times, whatever, I love etymology. What does anecdotal mean? And then in correlation of how and why you're using it.
So anecdotal evidence is basically self-evidence, like things that I've seen and experienced, and me building a framework around just stuff I experienced. It's not necessarily documented, or it's not necessarily researched. There's no testing that goes on or anything along those lines. There's no formal means to test that knowledge. It's just based on things I've seen and experienced. And so,
Okay.
and a lot of times professionals will use their anecdotal insight and then use the more book knowledge and research to form an opinion about a thing.
Okay.
And oftentimes, the anecdotal evidence of experts in their field of expertise means more than anecdotal evidence of a novice with no expertise in the field.
All right.
So, me going to experience a thing one time and then saying, yeah, this is what I experienced, that's completely anecdotal.
Mm-hmm.
Me going and sitting and saying, I've sat in a dozen meetings about this same issue with this same person, that's also anecdotal, but there's a history of expertise that goes along with it. I've done this 12, 20, 30, 50, 80 times about this same
Mm-hmm.
thing. And so my depth of anecdotal knowledge or self-knowledge of said thing, it may not be written in a book. It may not pass academic rigor in terms of testing and research, but it's good enough for me to make an informed decision about the thing I'm an expert in.
Gotcha.
So that's
Okay.
what it is. That's the difference. And there's there's the research documentation and stuff. And here's the thing, because we talked about this, how people will misconstrue use statistics. I can't say the word. They'll misconstrue statistics all the time. They will pull statistics out of context and say, well, the statistics say this, but they're basing it off of a novice's framework of knowledge. And there's no context around it because an expert can actually say, well, this is what this was actually testing. And the thing you're applying the statistic to wasn't what they were actually testing.
Mm-hmm.
And
I know
so,
that's one of the fun things I like in about sociology is that I didn't know that, but it's the social sciences, but it's science.
yeah,
So it's very it's very unbiased when it comes to what are the facts. Show me this. I don't care about your opinion. Show me what the facts are. I just want to see the numbers, right? And so yeah, I get that.
so let me pull this up here. All right, Liberty's back.
What's up, champ?
Yeah, bias expert will reject statistics if they don't fit the point they're trying to make. But also, a bias source will cite statistics if they don't like they will ignore statistics if they don't support what they're saying. And so there's a balance. Like I said, we say facts and figures don't lie, but numbers can lie all the time,
Mm-hmm.
depending on the context of how you're using those numbers. The fact that we talked about it, the fact that for whatever reason, SpaceX is considered $1 trillion company with no evidence of said thing.
Oh, dude. But see here, here's the thing. Um, it's not just SpaceX that does that.
Yeah,
Again, I just read this book. Dude, do you know how many companies come online that that they will people will give these large institutions or people $1 billion uh, donations, not donations, but um,
endowment.
endowments for their ideas. They have no product.
Mhm.
They have no company. They they don't even have an idea of what they're going to do yet. And
Right.
somebody's already giving them $1 billion with with anecdotal evidence, and not just anecdotal, specific, tried and true, proven facts that these individuals have broken the law, not only in public opinion, but in statistical opinion and science.
Mhm.
And you still give these people money, and you know they're not even worth anything. They're liars.
Yeah. Well,
So, I mean, I'm just saying, dude, like,
it's related, man. That's why I don't mess. Okay, so as an investor, done it for a while. I don't put money in IPOs ever, initial public offerings, because I know historically they're inflated, and then there's always an adjustment period, and the people that get in early typically are left holding the bag. biggest problem with the SpaceX IPO was, since it was such a large cap stock, since it was such a huge stock, instantly that goes into indexes that track the largest stocks in the world, which means that if you have some kind of ETF or automatically traded fund, you're automatically buying into SpaceX, regardless of whether you want to or not, whether you're aware of it or not. Right. And you are going to provide the liquidity. They're using you as liquidity, basically. They're going to sell you into the stock, and then you're going to lose all the money out of your portfolio as this thing adjusts down.
Oh.
And so you, like the short-term people that have have retirement accounts that are going to be retiring in the next couple of years, they may be holding on to SpaceX, and it's actually costing them money. SpaceX fully knew that they weren't worth $1 trillion when they started the thing. It was just like this weird agreed to thing that we're all going to agree to and tell the world. And yeah, we know we're going to take a haircut on this thing. This thing is going to, this stock is going to lose its value and adjust and correct. And I don't even want to say closer to its original value. I don't think it's ever going to correct to its original value, but it's going to have a hard correction. And that's what people have lost thousands and thousands of dollars individually, probably billions across all the people that have been kind of forced to invest in this thing. I knew that. And it's all on funny math. It's all based on projections, spitballing, guessing, reading tea leaves, whatever you want to call it. It's not really based on any hard data. It's anecdotal evidence.
Tea leaves.
Yeah. And SpaceX is a theoretical play. The only problem is, if it's a theoretical play, it's not necessarily fair for people that are investing in the stock market, who are trusting, who have these big cap stock funds. It's not necessarily fair for them to get roped into this thing and lose money on this thing as it goes through its natural correction cycle, especially if they're going to be retiring in the next year or two.
Okay.
That will absolutely derail whatever plans you have for that money. Now, I know there are people that have enough money where that's not a big of a deal, but if you've already budgeted for a specific amount due to your portfolio, and all of a sudden you lose $10,000, $20,000 off the rip that you didn't have even account for,
right?
You in trouble. So it's all tea leaves and speculation, guesswork. But that's the difference. And we don't, I'm gonna tell you, they don't be questioning these stock market people the way that they question actual experts in their field. Well, he knows all the stock markets. All the stock market is the world's giant prediction marker about how people feel about things. It doesn't really tie to what a company's real value. This is how people feel about the company or the economy or this sub-economy, this microeconomy here, there, and the third. It's not based on anything. Because if it was really based on who has the money, what companies are actually profitable and what companies are not, the stock market would look completely different. You're gonna tell me a company that has never really posted? I don't think SpaceX ever posted a profit in its history. And the last time it was like they lost $5 billion. And so you're telling me in 1 year since the last quarter, the last earnings call, you're telling me the last time we've done this, now we worth $1 trillion. We lost $1 billion, but now we lost a couple $1 billion, but now we're worth $1 billion. It's all bullshit.
I mean, but at the same time, though, I mean, look at this here or whatever. I mean, but that's how Instagram was. That's how, what is the other one? Instagram was the same exact way. Yeah. And they sold that thing for $2 billion and it hadn't made a dime. Like, no, it was either Instagram or Twitter. One of those two were sold for billions of dollars. And it literally took them 2 years to build that thing and then to sell it off. So again, it didn't make any money.
Well, and so the value in Instagram was the email list. It's all this, like for social media platforms. That's why people buy social media platforms. That's why these companies buy social media platforms.
Okay.
Direct access to the users. And so for them, they're evaluating something different than just advertising dollars or whatever other metrics.
Gotcha.
They're valuing something different. When Facebook acquired them, This is how we increase our user base. And then when we increase our user base, then we can sell more ads. So I get it. And again, it's all funny math, but that's what I'm saying. That's the difference. People will take, like I've watched, and I was a huge, I don't know if you ever watched Mad Money with Jim Cramer on CNBC.
So I used to.
I used to watch.
I caught a couple, but I won't. I've never just sat and watched it from beginning to end. Never.
People make fun of him, and I make fun of him too. But if you want to know where the books he writes are amazing. They're really good information if you want to get started in investing. Really solid, actionable, reasonable information. And then you wonder why he don't be having none of that on his shows. None of that is on his shows. None of the fundamentals or any of that stuff is consistently put on the shows. Some of these things, some of these stocks that he ends up suggesting on these shows are based on nothing but hype and things along those lines. And he'll say, well, you got to do your own due diligence and do your own homework. But then he'll recommend something that doesn't make any logical sense. So the books he writes were great. The application of the knowledge in real time, shaky. Right? And so you're like, what part of his expertise do I lean into? Do I go into the book side of things? Because that's where I'm at. I'm like, I'm looking at one of his books right now. After I read, all the other stuff about investing, I read the Jim Cramer books. Right? It was good information. But then I see him on TV and it's like, who is this guy? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
same thing I did with Donald Trump. And reading a lot of his, reading some of his stuff or whatever, I was like, man, this dude is actually kind of cool. But then seeing this one on TV, it's like, oh man, bro, what? This is what you doing?
Poppy is trash. I've had poopy.
Yeah, that shit's nasty.
It is nasty. It is so trash. But it's still cheaper to buy for checks. Yeah, right. They can just still, and once some of the licenses expire and all this other stuff, now that they own the property, they can get all the people that were invested originally, the shareholders or stakeholders or the founders paid off. And once that goes away, then they can incorporate it into their own put their own formula on. That stuff is nasty. I don't know how people drink that stuff, bro.
Yeah, and I've had different ones, and I'm like, man, each of them are just as nasty as the next.
That's how I feel about what is that seltzer water that people be pushing off on people. Where it's supposed to be flavored seltzer water, but it's like or flavored sparkling water, but it doesn't really taste like anything but TV static. And people be buying these all the time. And it's like, who is drinking this stuff? LaCroix. Right. Oh God, LaCroix. I don't know how
LaCroix's gross too.
LaCroix is a money laundering operation, dude. There's no way. LaCroix is a money laundering operation. There is no way. There's no way that people. Oh my God. Hey, more power to you, man.
Man.
If you like it, I love it. If me, it's a money laundering operation. People buy that.
It's a money laundering operation. Wow, that's funny.
And if you go to a black function, there's always some LaCroix over there. Ain't nobody drinking. It's just sitting there on the corner, just as an option if you want it. Right next to the room temperature bottles of water. You got the LaCroix sitting there, and nobody's drinking it. You got maybe one or two people. I like the sparkling. I normally will get like a sparkling water, like my local store has a sparkling water. It actually tastes like something. It actually tastes like when I get lemon lime sparkling water. It tastes like a lemon lime drink, but it's water. I can deal with that. I can't deal with stuff that tastes like TV static, bro. It tastes like nothing. Yeah, I've done the low carb life and stuff. I just need it to taste like something. I don't want the hint of the shadow of a strawberry. Like if I'm drinking something that's strawberry flavored, I don't want. This is what a person who's never had strawberries imagines what a strawberry tastes like. I don't want that. I don't want a vague reminiscence of a strawberry. I want something that
I want a
kind of tastes
strawberry.
like, I
Gotcha.
want strawberry flavored something. But yeah, so if you like it, I love it, man. But um, I've gone to plenty of functions where we end up leaving with cans and cans of poppy, where somebody's like, "Please take this out. Nobody's going to drink this. Please
Oh
take
my
it."
gosh.
And maybe you can use it as a mixer for something else. You can mix it in with something else that actually tastes like something, and it'll give you your bubbles.
Hmm. It's kind of like, yeah, you should put it over there, over yonder. You see that thing with the circle in the
Mhm.
bag, and it kind of stands up a little bit. Yeah, I think they call it a trash can. Put it right over there.
Well, I think some people just have that stuff in their house to show that they're a responsible adult.
Ugh. That's what water is for.
They have a can of poppy over there, or the can, or the big packages of Lacroix, just to show that they're a responsible and trustworthy adult. Flavored waters. I haven't had that one yet.
No, me neither.
Hey, like I said, man, if that's what, hey, everybody has different take. It takes all
Hey, that's
types.
what's up, man. Yeah,
Right,
that's what's up.
right now what is it, the little parasite or whatever that's going around that's giving people the explosive diarrhea. Right now, somebody's willing to risk it all for some raspberries. I hate raspberries, but somebody's willing to risk it all for raspberries and willing to risk weeks and weeks of explosive diarrhea for it. Go for it, man. Knock yourself out. That's not my option. That's not my choice. But if you want to gamble with your stomach like that for some raspberry stuff, knock yourself out. I don't like raspberries, but I'm not everybody. You want to gamble with yourself and your toilet and your toilet paper budget? Go knock yourself out. Okay. Hey, congratulations. All right. So anyway,
Oh, nice, good.
that's really good, man. Why school? We talked about why school districts can't be reduced to ratings. And expertise doesn't mean that you're infallible. I mentioned it. Like my opinions aren't infallible. Just because I got 20 some odd years doesn't mean that I can't be wrong about something. But it also means that I have a knowledge where there's a good chance I'm right about stuff that I've experienced. And so it's just a balance, right? I've kind of beat this horse to death. All right. So let's have another conversation. Let's pivot one more time. I want to talk about calling your shot. I want to talk about personal experience with calling your shot. Um, this past 2 months, I've been calling my shot. It's really when I say call your shot, that means say what you want, ask for what you want, and then go for it. And don't think that you could hint at the world about the world that you want to live in. Okay. Um, I've been calling my shots here, and kind of coming with a new perspective on how I do business. And then just this past week, I'm heading in like here in about an hour. I got another client meeting that was a potential client. I've had like five of them in the last couple of days, onboarding people. I'm probably going to end up with an office space um, that I can use to do business. Um, there's a couple of other things I'm going to talk to Fearless about off air, um, that I'm probably going to be doing. And it all calls from calling your shot. Oftentimes, this world will convince you that you have to have certain things aligned before you can plant your flag and make a decision about how you want to change your life. It's not always true. Sometimes you call your shot without the only evidence you need is what you know you want to live and the life you want to experience. So, a lot of people notice. A lot of people sit around wait to be noticed. I was one of those people where I thought that if I sit there and do enough good work, that somebody is gonna, as one of my old mentors used to say, I thought the money bird was gonna fly by and shit on my head. you know, um, I thought that if I was uh, dedicated enough, that the things I want would the universe would understand the things I want. And I kind of said, I'm done with that. I'm starting calling my shot. And I think the thing that kind of changed my perspective a bit was, um, I went to the most recent thing. I went to a friend's wedding, and I had multiple people coming up and say, "Hey, man, I see your stuff all the time." And yeah, man, it's helped me out and stuff like that. I'm sitting there thinking that I'm just doing my stuff out into the void, and people I know are walking up to me and saying, "Hey, your stuff is amazing." It means something to them, so I need to start taking it seriously. And so I'm like, I'm gonna call my shot, and so that's what I'm doing. And I think a lot of times people wait for evidence that's never going to come before they make the decision that they want that they're going to change something in their life that they don't like. You know.
Okay.
So again, sometimes you just kind of come out and say, "This is what I want, and how do I get it?" That's what it is. Asking is not entitlement, and it doesn't mean you're making demands on people. It just means that you're not demanding that somebody gives you something. It means that you're just stating what your intention is and making it visible to the world. Fearless, no, Fearless calls his shot. Like Fearless is one of the people that I draw. I've seen call the shot that he wants to take and then go for it. You
Mhm.
know. And so,
Hey, gotcha.
what's your experience with that, man? Because you're one of the people I've seen out here. You say this is what I'm going to do, and then you go make the thing manifest.
Mhm. Um, I don't know, man. I just get it in my head to do something, and I just go do it. I mean, and again, am I scared most of the time? Hell yeah. Am I nervous? Yep. Am I? Do I have anxiety about it? Yep. But I figure that shit. Once I just step in and just go do it afterwards, I'll be happy that I did.
Mm-hmm.
And most of us have so much anxiety about just stepping off and doing it that we hinder ourselves from just jumping off that proverbial bridge and just going for it. Me, I'm like, man, fuck it. You know,
Yeah.
there's some people or whatever that I'm like, if I never spoke to them again, I'm cool. I don't need to talk to them. I'm no thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but there's, um, but if I want to do something, I just do it,
Okay.
you know, and then I try to, and even if I'm not good at it, I'll figure it out eventually, or I'll just stay with it until I get it. And for me, like, I fail quick. I like to fail as fast as possible with stuff so I can get better, you know? So if I had to teach somebody some of the stuff that I've learned, I have a whole entire 100 days
Yeah.
of anecdotal experience to fall back on. You know what I'm saying? And talking for an hour and a half every single night, coming up with something brand new
Mm-hmm.
for 90% of that time. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, let's come on, dude. It's nothing. So
Yeah.
again, that was one of the things I was scared to do. I was nervous about it. No, I mean, if I haven't done it in a while, but I know that it's nothing for me to jump in and do it.
Right. And I think for a lot of people, and this is for a lot of adults, specifically if you've been working for a while, like if you've been out in the work world and stuff, you know that oftentimes you are in this position where you have to ask permission, and that ends up becoming your default. You ask permission of the people you work for to do specific things, and then that ends up becoming infecting your entire life, where you feel like you have to seek somebody's permission to do the thing every single time. And
Right.
I haven't thrived under that environment in a long time. And It's a gift that I wish I can give to some people, because some people really do think in that kind of regimented. Somebody has to give me permission to go out and do the thing that I want to try, right? And so, oftentimes, just stating what your intention is and being clear about it and repeating that intention is enough to get the ball rolling. I
Okay.
intend to do this thing, and I don't know how I'm going to do it. I can figure that out along the way. but this is what I want to do.
Right.
Oftentimes people get caught up in the planning thing of it, and then they try to plan for they try to optimize for situations they ain't never been in and haven't experienced yet. And that ends up creating a gap in execution. And so my thing, I guess, to kind of wrap up, because I got to start getting ready for this next meeting, is getting used to being uncomfortable. The discomfort comes from, asking, calling your shot creates, like, there's a possibility somebody might reject what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
There's a chance that you might fail at the thing. Staying vague allows you to kind of insulate your ego, because the failure can be blamed upon you never got the chance. And so I've kind of put myself out there and kind of tailored a lot of my stuff over the past 3 to 6 months of calling the shot. Fearless knows the shot I called, and I called it, and I readjusted it, and so I got something to tell you after I get off the air. But I called a specific shot, and it's coming to fruition a lot faster than I thought. And I didn't know how I was going to get there. I didn't know what it was going to look like, but the form it's taking is something that makes a lot of sense for the world I want to live in and the life I want to have for me and my family. So I'm saying all that to say this. Sometimes you just got to call your shot without knowing how the hell it's going to happen. You just got to say, this is what I want out of my life. This is the thing I want for me. This is the thing I want to experience. This thing I want to go do. This is where I want to go travel. This is the business I want to build. This is the promotion I want to seek. This is what I want to do with my career. Call the shot and then figure it out along the way.
Gotcha.
So that's all I got for that. And I got a whole bunch of notes on that one, but that's really, I think that's what I will end my part on. Fearless, do you have anything?
No, man, that sounds great to me. I love it.
All right. So we're going to wrap this up, and we'll get to you guys next week. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks, Liberty Twitcher, for jumping on here. Sorry for any audio issues. I think this mic is probably seeing the end of its days. I will talk to y'all later. I'll probably be back on for my nightly live stream. And that's all I got. Peace.